Hello everyone, this is Jimmy and welcome to episode 36 of All the Mods 3 Expert Mode. Today, we're not quite ready for that yet, we are going to begin Tier 6 stuff. Now before I really dive into Tier 6, I want to talk a little bit about what I plan to do for the rest of the series. Right off the bat, I'll say, I think the very end of this pack is actually not all that grindy. Why? Because you just have to make one of these. So each of these individual, this is basically composed of 9 sub items, and this recipe here looks a lot like the stupid one from Project Ozone, right? That had all the ingots or whatever. However, you need one. It's not so bad when you need to make one of these. Likewise, a lot of these, this recipe, if you asked me to make 10,000 of them, I would hate you. You asked me to make one of them? All right, fine. Not bad. However, there are a few bits here that just make me not want to touch it. The worst offender, I think, is Draconic Evolution. Draconic Evolution in this pack is basically the same Draconic Evolution that everyone, that you have everywhere else, with the exception that the Draconic Core has an obnoxious recipe. But it's the same mod. I've done it half dozen times on camera already. And then fusion crafting, all the same steps, except that all the cores just have these terrible recipes that I want nothing to do with. So if we look at the Wyvern core, what's that it? I'm AFK now, apparently. But if we just look at each of these cores, the only recipes that were changed in the pack were that the cores were made. Here it is. The Wyvern core recipe is what? Why? What does this accomplish? Likewise, the Awakened core has a equally kill me style. Okay, no, the Awakened core's not so bad. But my point is, I don't want to do Draconic Evolution for a 30th time, and I'm just not going to. So as a result, we're not going to finish the pack out completely. But that's fine for me. What I will do, however, is I will definitely do bees at least, because I've never done bees on camera before. I'm not the biggest fan of the way bees are ever implemented, but I'll show you how I do it, and I'll let you be the judge of whether or not you like the mod. And I will definitely do the Nuclear Craft to Fusion, because I've actually never done Nuclear Craft Fusion before, so it's a good chance to try something out. So, given that, let's start with bees. Why? Because I think this questline takes a long time. Specifically because, bees take a while to get going, but also the Tier 1 Void Ore Miner takes a long time to do its job. Anyways, starting off, then we have to make bee receptacles. It's a pretty easy recipe all set at this point, except it uses a lot of Industrium. So I had already set up another crafting thermionic fabricator to make Industrium, so I can auto-craft that. In fact, I already have auto-crafted a fair bit. That's just to, make life a little bit easier. Also, part of that process involves some of this 5x5 crafting. I looked at automating it completely with the automation interface, whatever it's called. Automation interface. However, this recipe uses some, I guess that's not bad, but it's just a lot of steps that I didn't want to be bothered with right now. So right now, when I request anything that requires the 5x5 crafting, like the block paper, it just puts all the inputs in here. I move them over by hand and craft. All right, so bees. I like to think of bees kind of like agricraft plants. So there are, when we search for bee, multiple different species. For princesses, rather. So there are multiple different species of bees. Each one has, it produces a output. So forest bees produce honeycomb. As you get to the higher tier bees, they produce more exciting outputs, usually. So vengeful bees produce irradiated combs, which can be processed into literally nothing. All right, well, let's try something else. Purple bees can make purple dye. But there any bees in this pack that are there's none of the bee add-ons that add the interesting bees, ones that produce power, tick acceleration. All right, well, anyways, our goal will ultimately be to get to the Imperial Princess because it produces royal jelly, and to get there we have to go through a number of mutations. So the Imperial B comes from noble and majestic at a X% rate. Because we have gendestry, we get to ignore the percentages and just make it happen. But it's kind of like, when we think about, I don't know, let's pick a seed, the red seed, right? The redstone seed. This isn't actually the redstone seed, is it? Yeah, it is, right? Like how we have to go through, go through this chain of mutations to get there. It's the same thing for bees. So to make the imperial, I lost track of where it was. To make the imperial bee, we need a noble and a majestic, which is a common and a cultivated to make a noble, and a noble and a cultivated to make a majestic, and yada, yada, yada. So normally, again, the way you do it is you keep rolling the dice on these percentages until you get the right mutations. But we're going to use gendestry to go around that because that part of bees is literally the worst thing in the game. The other thing bees have that that flowers or that agricraft, I guess, kind of has are stats. But instead of just having 3 numbers, if you look here, they have at least these 5 values. So starting from the top, bees can be, or queens and princesses can be pristine or ignoble. Pristine just means they will never die off. Ignoble means they have a limited number of life cycles that is embedded somewhere in that MBT data. Normal life determines how long their lifespan is. Strangely enough, shorter lifespans are actually more practical. Next up, worker. Worker speed. Higher worker speed just means higher production rate. Higher is better. The next 2 lines are their temperature and humidity preferences. So every biome has assigned a temperature and humidity value. If you put bees in the wrong temperature or humidity, they dislike it. It's one thing that makes working with bees without gendestry extremely difficult, because while many bees are normal, which like most biomes are normal, every now and then you have to go to other biomes to actually do your thing, which means you have like 30 different bee outposts. I think there's 5 different steps in each one for temperature and humidity, so you have up to 25 different permutations. Kind of sucks. Anyways, and the last line there is their preferred flower. It just means that somewhere nearby they need to have that flower. Cool. So, the quest, I like how this quest line goes. It basically says you start by making a bee receptacle, then you make some basic machines, and then you're done. It's like, well, where are all the in-between steps, guys? But the quest gets you started with some gendestry machines. The only one that, or you need all of these, you'll need multiple apiaries eventually, and the Mutatron has an advanced version, so you may as well make the advanced one. The difference is when you have bees that have multiple possible breeding outputs, like multiple possible mutations, the Mutatron gives you a random one, and the advanced Mutatron lets you pick. So because it is no more difficult to make the advanced one than the normal one, you may as well just pick. So I've made these machines. Now let's go set up everything but the apiary. The first thing we have to do is make or set up the mutagen provider. When provided with, I think there's only a few things it takes, redstone or glowstone. Maybe there's a few other possible inputs. Let's see. Redstone, nope, just redstone or glowstone. It produces this fluid mutagen. I think it's better to provide it with blocks because it takes the same amount of energy per operation. So anyways, I have more glowstone than redstone. Fluid mutagen is only used in the Mutatron, so you pipe it into there. This is just waiting for input now. Next up, we have the genetic sampler. So the genetic sampler takes bees, and remember all those traits I talked about earlier? When we look at princesses, they all have these traits here. Well, each of them is think of them as like a genome property. They can be extracted, and then you can print them onto other bees. So the genetic sampler does just that. When you supply it with labware, so every machine takes labware. It's just like a consumable. It's pretty cheap, and these little genome tiles. What are they called? These blank gene samples, which apparently stack to 64. That was laggy when I crafted them. they can extract a single gene from a bee, destroying the bee in the process, so keep that in mind, and then you can later have copies of it. Then you can transplant these genes onto genetic templates, so we'll need a handful of these. I think these only stack to 1, right? Yeah. So these genetic templates are used to store multiple genomes, or multiple genes together, I guess you can think of it. But it's easier, I guess, to show you than it is to talk about. Suffice it to say, we need a genetic sampler. Lastly, we need the genetic imprinter. This is what takes these genomes, or genetic templates, and actually turns it into a bee. Cool, so those are all of our components. Next up, we have to get the actual bees. Do we have any right now? We have a handful. Pristine princesses, and so normally you have princesses and drones. When to make a queen, you have to combine a princess with a drone in an apiary, and then the queen will live out her life, and when during that time she'll produce resources, and when she dies she will produce another princess and some number of drones depending on information in the genome. It's encoded in here somewhere. There is a handheld analyzer that can tell you this information, but you know what? Let's make one of those. The analyzer itself is made in the Carpenter, which is apparently painfully slow. And once you have it, you also have to provide it with effectively fuel. So, well, it's very laggy too. Anyways, you can put a bee in here to see its stats. However, it needs honey to, like, I guess, calm the bee down. So not this honey, that doesn't work. We need forestry honey, which I guess is from what, centrifuging honeycomb? Alright, let's do that really quick then. Apparently I only have a single honeycomb to my name, so if this doesn't centrifuge into any honey, we can't actually use the handheld analyzer yet. Alright, well, it was only a 70% chance to get honey. So since we didn't get it, we can't use this yet because we can't keep the bee calm. That's alright. We'll take a look at it later then. So if we take our hive, our apiary, and put the bees inside, they will do the breeding thing and then become a queen. Don't ask me what happens to the princess, or to the male. Anyways, I guess I should do this outside, huh? Because it needs to see the sky. Eventually, we can make bees that don't care about seeing the sky, but we're not at that point yet. So let's move this outside. When we take it outside, it still complains about not having flowers, probably on account of there being no flowers nearby. All we have to do is plant a flower somewhere in its vicinity, and it will eventually realize that it's there. Soon. Come on. You got this, bee. I believe in you. I believe in you. Alright, taking the bee out of the slot and putting it back in seems to have fixed it. So now the bee is working. We can see the little worker bees doing its thing. Work faster. Eventually, when this bar fills up, the bee dies. Oh look, we got a honeycomb. There's a lot of bee particles. That's one lucky flower, I guess. Anyways, when this bar fills up, the bee dies, and we get a princess back and 2 drones. Rinse and repeat. So my goal is to, when you do this, you will always end up with, well, not always. There's some bees that only leave you 1 drone behind. But my goal is to end up with more drones than I started with. Because my plan is to take these drones and come down to here. And for each species of bee, I will extract their DNA in the genetic sampler until I get the species DNA card. So each species, or each bee has, I guess this will tell me exactly how many. No, it doesn't. Does this do it? No. Here we go. 13. There are 13 unique chromosomes, and those are the ones you see on screen are the ones that are available. My goal is to extract the species chromosome for each one along the way, so that if I ever need another bee of that species, I can just print one with my genetic imprinter. So from that 1 drone I sampled, rest in pieces, I got temperature tolerance none. That's actually a very bad and useless genome. You can take these and smelt them, I think. Yeah, they smelt in a alloy smelter or a regular furnace to get rid of, to basically reset them so you can reuse them. You can automate these apiaries pretty simply with just a single item conduit. Insert and extract the same color. It will take the princess when it's done and put it back in the input slot if you enable self-feed. There we go. And bees, being the fickle animals they are, do not work at night. So if you want them to work at night, you just have to sleep through the night. Alternatively, you could install this light upgrade into the thing, and that just causes it to basically be effectively lit, even during the day or even during the night. There's a bunch of different upgrades, so this basically makes it, no matter what biome you plant it in, it'll be plain, so it'll have normal heat and humidity or whatever. It's like here, instead of having to put the bee in the nether, and just use this emulation upgrade. These upgrades, very, very nifty. The big one I want, though, is the one that kills them. Not that one. Lifespan upgrade. So each one reduces their lifespan by 33%, and I assume it's multiplicative, so having 4 of them will reduce their lifespan significantly. See about making a few of these. So by my math, with 4 of these in, the bee lifespan will be about 20% of what it normally is. So if I accelerate this, it's still way too long, but now when you accelerate it, you can see it actually progresses pretty quickly. So yeah, the lifespan upgrades make a big difference. I don't actually know, can I put 2 stacks of 4 in there? Is that allowed? I don't think so, but it's worth a shot, right? So I went out to get some new bees, and I realized I did something to break my tick time again. This time, however, I decided to check out the scan results from lag goggles. Apparently, there's just a bunch of sticks lying around. I tried teleporting to them, and it just froze my game up good. I think what's happening is the way my quarry works, it's somehow leaving the sticks behind. Sticks come from decay of leaves, right? Yeah, I don't know. But there's a lot of them. In fact, the problem is exclusively a whole bunch of sticks. So I teleported to try to figure out what exactly is happening, and then I found them. There's a lot of sticks. I see the sticks, guys. I'm going to try killing all item entities and see if that fixes the problem. I think this command only gets item entities in loaded chunks, so I'll probably kill any crystals I have laying on the ground over on my astral sorcery area, which I don't think I have any, but let's see what it does. Nothing? Or is it thinking about it? I think it's thinking about it. Well, it killed a lot of items, that's for sure. And earlier, there's a lot of Minecraft stick items killed up there. So that's good. I'm going to take a chance, I guess, fly over to the area that was very negatively affected, and we'll just see if I still continue to lag. Previously, flying over here froze me to 0 FPS. That appears to no longer be the case. Alright, so I think what it was that my quarry, I had it set such that it will quarry the wood. Like it was digging up the wood, but not the trees, not the leaves, which caused the leaves to start decaying, and then they decayed into their, into their sticks and left the sticks behind, and that was fundamentally the source of the problem because I let the leaves all decay into sticks, and then because the quarry moves on to a new chunk, the previous chunk, or the sticks lay on the ground and get unloaded, so they never despawn because items don't despawn in unloaded chunks until I fly by and load them all at once, and then it all lags to hell. So at least we understand what the problem is now. Anyways, the whole purpose of that trip was for me to go get some forest princesses and drones, so I can start the same process with forest bees. Now, likewise, they need the upgrades. Instead of putting like the single piece of item conduit on it, you can just use the automation upgrade, which has the same effect. And I know there's a flower range. Your flower's right here. Do you want a different flower? Maybe your flowers are trees. Let me check that. Perfect opportunity to use our analyzer. So I got some honey from the honeycomb our previous bees have produced. And we can see flower type is flower. Territory is average, which is large enough to see that flower. Why are you telling me there's no... Wait, did I put the wrong bee in here? No, this is a... Ignore that. That's my computer telling me that there's an update. Thanks, Windows. Oh, now it's complaining about not daytime. All right, fine. These forest bees are good because they have certain desirable traits. Their lifespan is shorter, which is desirable, and their fertility is 3, which is better, right? Whereas these have lifespan normal and fertility 2. I would show you, but I'm out of honey, so you just have to trust me on that one. So what I'm going to want to do then is, when I extract the traits from these, I'm going to eventually want to have something that has the forest bees' good traits combined with the meadows bees' good traits. As you can see, because of the shorter lifespan, they go through these cycles much faster. Yeah, it is fully time accelerated as well, which helps. But even compared to this one, when I fully accelerate it, right, this bar goes up slower, and we only get 2 drones per cycle, which means we only gain 1 extra drone per cycle. Anyways, I'm going to take the drones we have and go try to extract their DNA. Once you get a desirable sample, like here I have the forest species as a sample, you can use a genetic transposer to duplicate them. So once you have one, you can have as many as you like. And then by crafting one of these with a genetic template, you now get the chromosomes stored on a template. So for each bee species, I like to store the template with just that one chromosome on it, a sample with just that, and any leftover drones I have, which in this case I don't have any. So that's the one for forest. I'm going to do the same for meadows. So species meadows. Now that we've extracted the relevant DNA from forest and meadow species, I can take a meadows princess and a forest drone, put them into our advanced mutatron, and mutate them into a common queen. So the only possible mutation between these two is common, so that's what we get. Then I did move our hides down here, and I just put in the open sky and light upgrades, because it's actually, if we take off our night vision, it's pitch black in here. In 10 seconds we'll find that out, and it can't see the sky. So now if I put this in here, I do need flowers, don't I? You can have 1 dandelion. But yeah, now that our night vision's gone, it's almost pitch black in here. There's a couple light sources. But we'll give you your 1 dandelion. There's some space down there. Anyways, flowers. Stop complaining. You have flowers. The mutatron always outputs a queen, and what I like to do is run them for 1 cycle to turn it back into a princess plus a princess and a drone, so I can check their stats. Technically, I think the queen has the stats for the princess and the drones, but once it's, I don't know, it's the way I do things, I guess. Anyways, we can see that now the common princess and the drones have the exact same stats when you use the mutatron. But all of these things are not great, right? Like it only has 2 fertility instead of 3. It has the, normal lifespan. No, it has a shorter lifespan. But what I can do is, because I want it to have greater fertility, I take this chromosome template that I have certain chromosomes on, and then I apply it to, in the genetic imprinter, I apply it to the queen and 1 of the drones. I throw the other drones away. Get out of here. Because if the queen and the drones have the exact same stats, then the children will always have the exact same stats, and it'll make it stack. And that'll make life slightly easier. So imprint you. And now if we check this queen, it should have 3 fertility. Repeat that process until we've extracted the relevant traits from the common species, which here is the species trait. Every now and then a species will provide another top tier trait, like, I don't know, cultivated here provides shortest life and fastest worker. So I want to extract, or fast worker. So I want to extract those traits in addition to just a species trait. Anyways, the next step indeed is cultivated. So meadows, well, I think any of the basics plus a common gives you cultivated. Is that right? Yep. So we'll breed up a cultivated queen, and then we do the same steps again. Next up, we have to breed cultivated with common to produce noble. It doesn't look like it has any good stats on it, so this is one of the first times where the difference between the advanced and the normal mutotron matters, because there's multiple possible outputs. I want noble. I'm going to take a look at the stats on this one, actually. It might have fertility 4, which is a stat that I am looking for. Nope, it only has fertility 2. All right. Next up, noble plus cultivated is majestic. Majestic bees have the very good 4x fertility, which I think is the highest, at least among vanilla forestry bees. So I'm going to try to extract that trait, as well as the species, from these bees. The imperial bee here is, for one of the bees that we need because it produces royal jelly. But it is the first bee we've had that has an effect. I think the beatific effect is like a AoE heal regeneration type thing, I think. Let's put it in here and find out. Most effects are negative, although sometimes there are, it's a regeneration effect. Sometimes there are nice positive effects to have, like this one. And look at that, we're now collecting royal jelly, haha. The production is tied to the species. No queen. What do you call this? Oh, I forgot to put my automation upgrade in. Alright, fine, you win. With the completion of the Imperial bee, we are now more than halfway done with our bees. In fact, there's only one major species left we need to go for, that's Industrious. And because it reuses common and cultivated, we actually only have 3 mutation steps. However, now, because my queen is in use, I need to produce a new princess. So what I'm going to do is take this forest princess, and this is the whole reason I made this genetic library here. The first mutation we need to do is common plus cultivated. So I'm going to grab my common, let's grab a cultivated drone and a common species template. What I can do is I can turn this forest into a common. And that's why I have this genetic library, so I can, transform the species of my bees as needed. Also, a time in a bottle to speed my machines up. So now what was a forest princess is now a common princess, and then I can mutate that here. And I want diligent this time. Right? It was noble I had last time, right? Yeah, good. Alright, and then at this point the steps are the same again. Whew, we are done. We have Imperial bees here, Industrious bees here, and they're each producing their various, products. So from our Imperial bees, we need these royal jellies, and from our Industrious bees, we need these combs because we have to sift them down into this propolis. Is that how it's pronounced? And I think once I grab 4 of that, that completes, well, not the entirety of the quest, but the first 2 bullets. Honey, I think we can just, how do we get this? We squeeze honey drop for 100 millibuckets, and we have a chance at a propolis. Is it better to do it in the squeezer? It is not. All right, but the reason we need all that is because we have to craft our first little bit of this litherite crystal before we can get into void ore miners. So we're not quite there yet, though. We have the royal jelly and propolis. We still have to make the Osglow glass and glitch fragments. But the bees, I think, was by far the well, I expected it to be the worst part, but honestly, the bees didn't turn out to be all that obnoxious. I think the biggest thing that made bees quite decent, actually, here, not all that painful, was the time in a bottle. I started this episode with like 14 hours in my time in a bottle, right? So I dumped 6 hours mostly into speeding up apiaries. That it's normally the worst part of bees is because you're just waiting for the bee to go die off so you can, do stuff with the drones it produces. But the time in a bottle made that so much better. So you know what? Thank you, Time in a Bottle. You're the hero of this episode. The other thing that helped a lot was having access to Gendistry right from the get-go. Normally it's gated behind, like, I remember in FTB Continuum, you had to make both of these bees before you get access to any Gendistry features. And that was awful. Anyways, so I'm going to reevaluate my assessment of bees and say it was actually pretty fun. I'm pleasantly surprised. In any event, I think that is all the time we have for today, though. So I hope you enjoyed this unbelievable episode, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.